A new Dungeons & Dragons starter set just came out, but is it any good? Let's take a look at Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. The new Dungeons & Dragons starter set is here. Right now it's only available at Target, but I believe sometime in October it will be more widely available. It's 20 bucks. Why don't we just jump right in and I'll show you what you get for the $20. It comes with some dice, just the standard polyhedral set of dice. There is this pamphlet that has some more information. I think this is really good, actually. I haven't gone to the links to look at everything, but it's got some helpful videos and stuff on how to play, and I think really watching videos is maybe the best way to learn how to play and especially learn how to run Dungeons & Dragons. So I think having something like this that will help with that is a good thing. It comes with a 30-page rule book. I'm not going to flip through this too much because it's basically just the rules as written in the player's handbook. But one interesting thing to note is there are not rules for creating your own character. And that's because the box comes with 5 pre-generated character sheets. There is a cleric, a fighter that's like a bow and arrow fighter, a paladin, a rogue, and a wizard. And I think having the pre-generated character sheets is actually a really good thing because I've always found that creating a character at the very beginning, filling out all of this information, especially when you don't know the rules of the game, is incredibly challenging and overwhelming. I mean, imagine having to come up with all this stuff, not knowing the rules. So having the pre-generated characters is really good. And something that I think is really cool is that they have a story tied in with your player's background that gives story hooks into the adventure. And speaking of the adventure, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. This is what I'm really interested in looking at. So let's get rid of some of this other stuff. So this adventure will take players from levels 1 to level 3. It is absolutely meant to be an introductory adventure. And honestly, this whole set is clearly designed to be an introduction not only for players, but also for dungeon masters. It's clear that this set is a $20 entry point to sort of dip your toes into Dungeons & Dragons to see if it's something that you're interested in playing more. You know, instead of buying 3 big hardcover books, you just spend the $20. You get enough rules to get you going, an adventure, some character sheets. I do think it's a little bizarre that they didn't include a DM screen like they did in the Essentials kit. I think that would be really, really helpful for new dungeon masters to have some of the rules and some of the things that they need for running this adventure on hand. Plus, I think having a DM screen really helps with the fantasy of playing D&D at a table. All right, since I haven't run Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, I'm going to be approaching this as a first impression, not a review. But I really wanted to look at this adventure because the first starter set and the Lost Mines of Phandelver adventure is how I started dungeon mastering myself back when that starter set came out. So I'm just really excited about this adventure, and I want to see if this is a good place to start not only playing Dungeons & Dragons, but also running Dungeons & Dragons. And I'll say right off the top that if you're an experienced dungeon master, I have a different book that I'm going to recommend at the end of this video instead of Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. But I think if you are new to dungeon mastering, this is absolutely going to be the best place to start. All right, let's jump into the adventure. Look at all that text. Okay, this is a 48-page book. There is a lot of great advice for new dungeon masters. There's reminders all throughout the entire thing, which I think is really the best part of this adventure. It starts off with a description of the Forgotten Realms, an adventure background, which is basically like just the backstory of this island, Stormwreck Island. Basically, a bunch of dragons have battled here over the years, and there's now a sanctuary on the island where a bronze dragon in human form sort of protects the place and gives a place for people to find healing and safety. But there's some danger lurking below the surface of the island, and it's causing bad things to happen. So the adventurers are needed to help get to the bottom of it. There's an adventure outline. Basically, get to the island, check out Dragon's Rest, which is the sanctuary with a bunch of NPCs. And then there's 2 little dungeons and then a final area with a dragon fight. So, flipping through here, more Dungeon Master tips. Here is a map of Stormwreck Island, and one thing I will say about this entire collection maybe is that the art, while it's all great art, this is a super cool map, it's kind of lacking in my opinion. It's not the most evocative artwork. You know, there's only 4 locations on this map. I feel like we could zoom in more and see some locations, get a better sense of what this island actually looks like, instead of this zoomed out version. Jumping right into chapter 1, we're introduced to Dragon's Rest, this sanctuary. Now, like most Dungeons and Dragons adventures, if you plan on running this, you are going to need to read the entire book, but I think what's really great about this is it's only 48 pages and it's probably only 30 pages of actual adventure. So it's super easy to retain everything you need after one read through. I don't know that I would be super confident running my first game regardless, just because of rules and stuff, but I would be super confident after one read through with the story parts of this adventure. So we jump right in. The players, you know, like I said, they on their character sheets, they have the backstory with reasons to why they want to go to this island. Some of the characters have cooler reasons than other, like the rogue and the wizard have cool reasons, but the fighter and the paladin aren't quite as interesting. But you just show up after an uneventful boat ride right on the shores of this island, and they're zombies. So right away, there's a zombie fight, kicks it off. The players realize that there's something amiss on this island when zombies shamble out of the water. And again, there's all of this great information about how to run zombies. It gives a tip about the zombie ability Undead Fortitude and how to describe the combat around that ability. So when a normal sword slash hits the zombies, you could say something like, that attack seems like it should kill the zombie, but it keeps shambling forward. But if the cleric uses Sacred Flame and does holy damage to the zombie, it totally obliterates the creature. And just really good advice about describing combat. And I think reading this really gives a new DM the tools that they need to feel confident in running this adventure. So maybe I take back some of the previous stuff I said about not feeling confident. There's also a really great mechanic in here that Runara, this bronze dragon, will come save the day if the level 1 players get in over their heads. Not the best way to start out an adventure, but it's there if you need it. Then we get into all of the NPCs at Dragon's Rest, and this is what I'm talking about, man. There's just one kobold artwork, but there's 9 different kobolds in this sanctuary. It'd be so cool to see all 9 of the different characters, and even seeing Runara, this like the main NPC. I mean, I guess technically this is her, this bronze dragon here, but maybe she appears later. It would just be cool to like get some more artwork. There's also Tarak and Varnoth, two human NPCs that are sort of like quest givers in this sanctuary. We have our map of the sanctuary here. Really, really simple, small place. And the setup of this adventure is kind of the same as the Lost Mines of Phandelver, where you as adventurers have to prove yourself to the people of Dragon's Rest, the same way you have to prove yourself to the villagers in Phandalin. I kind of think that's the best way to start off low-level adventures, is you become heroes, not just because you killed some monsters, but because you helped the people in this place. There's a lot of great information and lore about Bahamut and Tiamat. You know, this is all about dragons, so you gotta have your platinum dragon and your chromatic dragons and all that stuff. There's some more combat and how these quests get introduced here, and some more information on how the players might interact with the NPCs based on their backstory. So super helpful dungeon mastering advice here. Then we get into exploring the actual island. And this is another reason I wanted a more detailed map of this island, because there's some cool stuff going on, like these additional encounters. There's a hot springs, havoc. these fume drakes, there's an owlbear encounter, and kobold renegades. Part of the story is that whenever a dragon dies on this island, their magic kind of persists and has different effects. And that's kind of alluded to in this Hot Springs Havoc little mini encounter. But I think it would have been really cool if they would have had maybe 3 additional encounters. These are 3 combat encounters, but it'd be cool if there was 3 additional encounters of just ways that the players could experience the island and maybe see some of the effects that the magic from these dead dragons have on this place, you know, and not necessarily everything needs to be about combat, but you know, this is a Dungeons and Dragons adventure, so fighting monsters is what we're here for, right? This little section right here, what lies beneath, I love this. It basically just describes there's an ancient red dragon that is captured under the island, and it just explains, you know, how a new dungeon master could expand this adventure to exploring further under the island. And even though it would be cool if all that stuff was a part of this adventure, it gives a new dungeon master permission to make it up and have fun doing it. So I think this is super cool. I'm really glad that they just have this little section about expanding it yourself. Okay, now we get into chapter 2. This is the Seagrow Caves. Basically, a Myconid. Let's go ahead and flip to the map. Just a 6-room. You know, it's basically a 5-room dungeon, if you've heard me talk about it on this channel before. Super cool concept for constructing dungeons, and this chapter of this adventure is just a really cool 5-room dungeon with a bunch of mushroom people, and, you know, the magic from this island has come up and has started corrupting them, and it's up to the players to get to the bottom of it and see what's going on. It ties in a cool way with the rogue's backstory, and it also does the thing that I love where, you know, the story of this island is changing things, and the players can help return things to the status quo and get some treasure and fight some monsters at the same time. Again, more tips about running combat, and I guess one thing that should be noted is it says these 2 adventures, chapter 2 and chapter 3, both assume that the players will be first level when they get here, but then for each encounter, it gives some advice on what to do if the players are 2nd level when they get here. Usually it's just adding more monsters, but definitely cool how they handle the scaling and stuff, because that's always the tricky part. I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for years now, and I still don't understand how to scale things, so it's helpful information in here, because that can be an intimidating part of playing for the first time. I guess another thing to note is that the blue boxes are the text that you just read to the players. Again, it's not something that I would necessarily use, but for a new dungeon master, super, super helpful. I really, really like this dungeon. I think it's set up perfectly. And like I said earlier, reading through this once, I have a clear idea of how everything works and would be able to sit at the table with this book and run through this nice little dungeon with my players, no problem. It gives some advice on ending the chapter and what happens next. And then we go straight into the cursed shipwreck. So this is basically investigating where the zombies from the beginning of the adventure come in. There's a harpy that is taken nest in the crow's nest of the sunken ship that sank because it ran into a bunch of gold dragon bones in the water. Like super cool, very evocative kind of setup to a sunken ship adventure. I like that there's the harpy stuff. It's not just zombies in there. And then there's some story stuff with Orcus. It introduces Orcus into this crazy dragon adventure. You know, there's this talisman that is creating the zombies. That's basically an Orcus curse. Again, the map, this is actually a really good map, like functionally very good. And it's really a great map to run the adventure from. But like, this is a sunken pirate ship that's crashed on dragon bones. Like, show me some cool dragon bone pirate ship artwork. So on a pirate ship, there actually is a lot of treasure on this thing. I think it would have been cool if they would have maybe put some like common magic items or something. Even though this only gets you to level 3, it'd be fun to throw some magic items at the players. Even if they're new players, I think low level magic items are pretty easy to understand. So yeah, once the players are done with chapters 2 and 3, then they move on to the Clifftop Observatory with this blue dragon that looks like a gremlin. Is it a wormling or a young? Might be a young blue dragon that has taken over this old observatory on the island, and this adventure does all of the great things that I love, where, you know, there's a place that served one purpose on this island before, but now an enemy has moved in and is using this place for a new purpose. So this blue dragon is trying to carry out this ritual where it gains power from the dragons that have died here in the past. And there's kind of like a rescue mission, and there's a bunch of kobolds that worship this blue dragon that you might be able to befriend instead of fight if you're clever. There's some cool magic stuff going on with the bridge, some puzzle type things happening. And again, there's just a lot of great advice for new dungeon masters. So like it says stuff like, you know, expect your players to be clever, right? And ways to, you know, kind of help them be clever. This whole section is all about how to role play this blue dragon enemy, and how the players, you know, they won't be able to befriend it, but they can definitely talk to it. And I think this is really the strong suit of this adventure, is just all the advice and confidence boosts that it gives to a new dungeon master. So it talks about fighting the dragon, and then it comes back around to the actual ritual that the dragon does, and it's a little weird because the players can fight the dragon and then it flies away, but will come back and try and do the ritual. And I think maybe if I were to run this adventure, I would maybe reorganize the layout of this observatory and have the ritual going on as the players get there. Or maybe once the players get there, then this blue dragon decides it needs to get this ritual going right now before it can be stopped. And all these kobold minions that the blue dragon has could be trying to get in the way of the players so they can't stop the ritual. I think I would kind of redo it like that, because the ritual is really cool. It's this kind of cool puzzle that happens in the middle of the fight. And by this time, I think, you know, the players will be good at going through combat. They'll have fought zombies and a bunch of sturges. There's kind of sturges all over the place. Maybe there should be a little more variety to the monsters, but they'll have fought zombies and sturges and kobolds at this point, so they'll be ready for a challenge. And this ritual adds an element to a dragon fight that's already intimidating. I think that's how I would do it, is make sure this ritual is happening when the players get there. Because if they can stop this ritual, then the players really become the heroes of this island, and they will have set things right for dragon rest, and they will be well on their way to like actually being heroes, which is the whole point of these low-level adventures, is make new players feel like they're heroes, right? A few magic items. There's a couple like +1 weapons. I just wish that there was a little bit more, you know, make it a little more interesting than just a +1 weapon. And then we get into the creature stat blocks. I guess there's actually 2 pages of explanation about creatures and how to run them, which is really good and helpful. This is maybe some of the stuff that would have been nice on a DM screen, so you wouldn't have to flip to some of these things. Then you just get into the actual creature stats themselves. Everything is, you know, it's a typical D&D stat blocks. It's a lot of information, but because they're low-level creatures, you know, it's not too overwhelming. I mean, here's the thing, right? You got a ghoul, you got the cool ghoul artwork. There's space right here for a harpy. Just, like, give us the harpy artwork. I just want the artwork, you know? Adult there's lots of Myconid artwork, but maybe, like, that space could have been used. Sinensa is, like, the main Myconid person. Like, let's see the main Myconid person. I mean, this one's cool. The Spore Servant Octopus, like, that's a pretty awesome encounter. This, like, fungus-covered octopus that guards the Myconid cave. It's pretty awesome. Sturges, you get a full half-page Sturge artwork. Oh, man. You know? Okay. So yeah, that is Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. It's weird that they don't have a cover on these books. I get that the components of this thing have to be lightweight, and I love just a saddle stitch, you know, a staple and folded booklet like this. I actually really love that about this, but like, I don't know, add one more page spread so you can have a cool cover. You know? But I don't want to be too negative about this because I think for $20, this is an amazing introduction into Dungeons and Dragons. I think the adventure is very cool. It does everything that I want in a D&D adventure. It not only is good, I think, for new players, you know, you get to fight a dragon, right? You get to fulfill the fantasy of being these characters and going on this adventure. But I think more importantly, if you want to be a dungeon master and haven't given it a shot yet, this is the way to do it. You just, you know, read through the rule book, or better yet, watch some of the videos that I'm sure they have put together about learning the rules, and then just reading through this adventure will give you everything you need to be a dungeon master and have a good time. All that being said, if you are a dungeon master and you're looking for a low-level adventure to run your party through, let me zoom in on Flick Silverpin's Guide to Dragontown. This is my attempt at creating a low-level adventure. I put a lot of effort into this zine. It is, I think it's only 40 pages. Yeah, it's only 40 pages long. It's a little bit shorter, but the thing that this doesn't have is all the advice for being a dungeon master. But if you're one already and you're looking for a fun way to introduce new players to Dungeons and Dragons or some other fantasy role-playing game, Flick Silverpin's Guide to Dragontown's gotcha. So I put a lot of effort into drawing evocative, cool maps and making sure that every character in the book has an illustration to go with them. Here's Quinn Sundry's Market, where the shop in Dragontown. There's also a dragon in this adventure. There's magic apples, there's mystery, and all kinds of fun stuff. There's a bakery that has magic baked goods, and a tavern with a bunch of quest hooks. There's slimes. You get to battle a bunch of slimes. And then there's goatlins. Instead of goblins, there's goatlins that you can fight, scare off of Grandpap's farm. There's a bunch of alley cats that are causing trouble. A group of cat thieves. And this is what I'm saying. I got 9 alley cats, just like there's 9 kobolds in Dragon's Rest, and I illustrated all 9 of them. Anyway, so yeah, there's their hideout. There's crazy bees and stuff, and then a crypt with zombies. I mean, it's strangely similar to Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. You know, you're fighting zombies, there's a dragon, you break into a castle instead of an observatory, and there's a big sludge monster creature and crazy plant creatures. So anyway, that's Dragontown. Check it out. There's a link down in the description. So yeah, let me know what you think of the starter set. Are you gonna get it? Are you gonna run this adventure? Are you a new DM that is looking for an adventure to run? Highly recommend Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!